What's up guys, it's Rowan here from AOSTV. And HSC English, particularly with the new syllabus at play, has perhaps been more challenging than ever, and it's probably inevitable that at some point during the HSC year you get an assessment back that looks pretty horrible. And the question then is, what do you do about it and how on earth do you bounce back? And so today I'm going to be chatting with Sophie, who had an experience of scoring 55% in a HSC English assessment. A little scary, but by the end of the journey ended up achieving 92% externally and 88% overall. So I had a 35% mark improvement. And Sophie's story is proof that one assessment being screwed up, or even a couple maybe, is certainly not the funeral for your HSC. That you can actually bounce back, turn things around, and still get into your goal university course. So welcome, Sophie.
Thank you, welcome. Oh.
I guess an initial question just to kick things off, right? What happened in that first assessment that went all wrong?
So it was the first multimodal assessment, and I had a really difficult term 4. I was really unmotivated. I wasn't doing as much work as I should have. I didn't really step up to that year 12 level. So I got to this multimodal. For us, it was due at the start of term 1. I had a really breezy summer holidays. A couple of weeks before, I was like, oh my goodness, I have this multimodal due. And I didn't really do too much research into my related text. I didn't put as much effort as I should have. I didn't really understand the concepts that were behind the common module. And I thought I did a pretty decent job, handed it in, and yeah, I got 11 out of 20. So that was a bit of a shocker, especially because I was not as confident in English at the start. So that really set my confidence back a bit.
Yeah, wow. So context here, you've done term 4. It's really your first English assessment.
Yeah.
Confidence is already not, as you said, amazing. What was your confidence like when you got the result back?
I was bawling. I was that kid in the class who just started crying when I got the assessment back, and I went up to my teacher and I'm like, what am I going to do? I was going okay in year 11 and now I feel like I was one of those people who thought, I've stuffed up one assessment, I've stuffed up everything, I'm not going to go well, I'm going to get bad. It's just, I was really thinking of the worst case scenario, and yeah, I was really stressed out about it, and I knew the pressure was on to go really well for the rest of the year, which was really scary.
It is right, because with one down, it's like, well, if I'm going to dig myself out of this hole, I need to try to do even better.
I need to go amazing, yeah.
And English is compulsory, so it's not like you can sort of fob it off to the 2 spare units that you might have. So what was step number 1 then, right, in trying to come back from this?
So probably for me, I sat down maybe a week later. I had a really good read of the feedback I was given. At the time I read through it, it just didn't make too much sense. I guess
when you're emotional, right, you just can't process it.
The emotions kind of take over. So I sat down a week or so later, I read through and I read, what do I actually need to do here? Because teachers give feedback for a reason, so I thought, if I can try to take this on, it will be worth it. So I had a little read of it. I was still very lost. When you get 55%, there's not a lot of good in there. So I was quite confused on where to go. Actually, it was after the 55% that I actually started getting tutored at AOSTV. So that was probably a step for me, because I was someone English has always been that subject which I really struggled with. So I needed a plan, and I didn't know how to have a plan. So that was a big step for me, just to have some more guidance and all of that. But the first most important thing for me was to get my confidence back and try as hard as I can to do the small things, because I've never been the type to, oh yes, I'm going to write a 45-minute essay right now, I'm highly motivated, I know exactly what I'm saying. I really had no idea. So I would just try and do the small things, and my tutor Trisha also told me this as well, just if you can write an introduction, if you can write one quote and a little bit of analysis, and just try and put anything together that you can, it's better than doing nothing. And I just thought I'd make small goals for myself, because at this point I had no idea what to do. There was nothing really in my essays which were anything that I wanted to be by the HSC, so I thought if I just work on small sections, I can try and increase my confidence in maybe my introductions, maybe they will go amazing, and then work on topic sentences, sophisticated analysis. And that was throughout the year. I just did small little things, and over time that really helped me build my confidence up with.
So it's just building momentum by the sounds of it, right? So that your confidence grows. So what I'm hearing from this is process the feedback, and you might need some time to just settle. Then it's ask for help, right? Recognize that, based on the feedback, maybe I can't do this on my own. And then the third thing is start small, right? Don't go, you know what, I'm going to do all this stuff and try to change it overnight.
It's not going to happen. For most people, it definitely won't happen that way. I just thought, for me, I was already struggling. I just need to do small steps. And in the end, the small steps paid off. So
that's it, which is fantastic. Because in the end, how did you end up going?
So I got a 92 externally and an 88 overall. So it was my trials and HSC were the ones which really pulled me up.
So again, I think this is a really important point to highlight, is that because they're worth so much, you can, screw up your earlier assessments and still do really well overall.
Yeah, so it was really only my trial exam which actually went okay. I got 55% the first one, and then I got 60% of my creative writing, and I think it was like a 70% or something in the one of the other assessments. So I wasn't going amazing, but I just knew by trials, my trials went well, and then I knew that HSC was worth 50%. So even if I did screw up an assessment at school, it's when you divide it down and by your subjects, it's really worth nothing, and you can definitely work from there.
That's it. So with the HSC worth 50%, you knock out a band 6, which is fantastic.
Yeah, you can really change your mark, and it did.
Yeah, which is so great to hear. And I think students need to hear that, because I think it is easy to get into the trenches and the pit of, anxiety that hits and not see that bigger picture. One of the things I guess I wanted to ask you is, you had that second assessment, so you got the 55, you said the next one was maybe 60. There's some small growth. Yeah. But how did you feel when you got that? Were you still kicking the guts?
It was my creative writing. It was a creative writing one for craftive writing, and it was meant to be my strongest point. So again, actually that was my third assessment, and it was a real kick in the guts because I thought I was going well. I was doing the small things, and I got that 60%, and I was really crushed because I thought it was the best piece of writing. I put so much time into it, and I was really crushed because I thought it was good. It was another little step down for me.
How did you stay motivated through that then?
Oh goodness, that was hard, but I think for me, I just tried to do the small things. I was trying all throughout English, not even in creative writing, to play to my strengths a bit. I'm a real humanities student. I did legal and modern, and they were my best subjects. So I thought if I have some of the thinking of those subjects and think what I do in them, although English is not the same. For instance, I did a lot of research in my legal and modern, and research essays are my strongest suit. So I thought English in the end is not the most, it's not too dissimilar. So I thought if I do some research, if I research my text, if I research academic articles, or I do my research, I can really get a whole bunch of other perspectives, especially for someone who I struggle with sophisticated analysis. People would say sophisticated analysis, I had no idea what they were talking about until I figured it out for myself. So I really just I looked at other subjects, and I looked what's working for me that I can transfer to English. And that was probably something I just tried to do. I just tried to read a lot. And for creative writing, I just read lots of examples, and I saw what they were trying to do and how it succeeded, and maybe not in some cases, but I just really, really researched quite widely. And before I even was writing, I was looking and seeing, what are these people doing? What's their aim? How did they go? And how can I emulate some of that in my own stuff? Which gave me a bit of confidence to say, I can do this. There's not 10 million words I have no idea what they mean. I can write, in a way that's authentic to me and still hopefully go well at that stage.
That's awesome. So what's happening here is, one, that the HSC is worth 50%. So got to keep going.
Yes, that is the motivator.
And then two, you're sort of finding the strengths and going, well, let's leverage these. This is a challenging subject. It's not working for me yet.
Yes.
But if I can build these other strengths from my other subjects and pull it into English, maybe I can get it going in time for that 50% HSC exam.
In the end, I knew that day in October was the most important. So every little thing that I did would add up in some way, contribute in some way, even if it wasn't contributing right now or the next assessment. In the end, everything that you do adds up. And English, it takes a lot of effort. It was my hardest subject. I struggled with it so much. I cried so many tears. But again, the little things and the constant improvement it works out in the end. If you put the time in, it will 100% work out.
Now, I understand along this journey you were getting some support with Trisha, an Artist Smart tutor. Yes. What prompted you to reach out for help, and then what was it like working with Trisha?
So I reached out after getting that really low mark because I sat down with my mum and dad, and they're like, you need to pull this up if you want to get into law. So I was looking at different tutoring companies, and Artist Smart had a really good reputation. So contacted AOSTV and got in contact with Trisha, and Trisha was the fairy godmother of English for me. She absolutely saved my mark. So even obviously helping me a lot with my essays and especially answering the question. I didn't know how to answer the question until I started working with Trisha, and more so than that, just motivation and someone I could always just type on the Google Doc like, Trisha, can you please read this? I'm really lost. And Trisha was always there to have a read of my stuff or help me figure out some more analysis. And we see it every Thursday. We would just go through, she would help me a lot with my assessment tasks as well. She'd help me go through feedback and understand where I can improve. And she was one of the people who gave me all those example pieces to have a read of, and basically prompted me to start doing a lot more research. And yeah, Trisha honestly saved my English mark.
Yeah, wow. Well, you did a lot of work as well. I don't want to, we shouldn't take away from the fact that clearly, you stayed committed throughout the journey, but it's great to hear that Trisha had such an impact. A question, what were you doing week to week, right? So we've got some of these bigger picture themes that you were sort of trying to work on, week to week throughout the terms after that first assessment. What did that look like?
So obviously I was going to be doing any work set by school, so my teacher would often set a paragraph or some bit of work for school. And Trisha would always set me something as well, just a creative piece or a paragraph, so I would be doing those quite consistently. As much as I was working on doing all of that, and just keeping up with research. So I'd go on JSTOR and I'd read a couple of articles about I did 1984, or I would look at a study guide for Richard. I did that as well. So I'd be doing probably my schoolwork, an extra piece of work, and then just some more wide reading.
And so what I'm hearing is writing and reading.
Yeah.
Like writing is in practicing so that you can further enhance your ability to sort of communicate sophisticatedly, and then reading so that you could actually have something to say.
Yes, basically.
And sort of craft your theses and arguments. What was the best thing about working with Trisha and AOSTV?
Honestly, I think it was probably, she was a major contribution in getting my confidence back. Obviously I was doing the small things, but it was Trisha who she was the one who was looking at all my work and showing me that this is actually, although you've got this to work on, this is really good. This is something that would get you, this introduction would get you a band 6, or this is a really, really sophisticated piece of analysis. So apart from all the time she spent working with me, working with analysis, working with questions, working with that, it was just knowing that things were going to be okay. She would always be telling me, okay, this is really good, and would help me enhance upon what I was already going well at, and then would be like, okay, this isn't working as well, but you can do this to improve on it. So one of the things she'd always get me to do was 20-minute mini essays. So it would be helping me with answering the questions. So I think it was one essay and I didn't answer the question. So she was like, okay, here's the thing you could do. You just write an introduction, 3 topic sentences and a conclusion, and just try to answer it. Don't think about sophistication, just try to answer it in your own way. And I did a lot of those over time, and they were very bad at the start, but that was probably one of the exercises which helped me most with actually looking at the question and being like, okay, here's what I can say about it, which is actually related. So that was an activity that I did a lot throughout my different topics, and it worked out because I started answering the question. Which is
great, and it's so critical, right? If you don't answer the question, it doesn't matter how brilliant everything else you have. You just won't get the exactly, you won't get the mark. So leading up to, let's say, HSC exams, what were you doing to prepare for those HSC exams?
So obviously there's been a new syllabus. There isn't a whole lot of past papers around, and there was only the NESA given ones for us. So I worked through those. I tried answering those, some of them in time conditions, some of them with a 20-minute quick mini essay. But a lot of it was looking at the syllabus, and they can't ask you something that's not in the syllabus. They might have it worded weirdly. It might not present exactly as it is in the syllabus, but they can't ask you anything outside it. So I spent a lot of time looking at my text in relation to the syllabus. So it sounds quite obvious, but I didn't do that a lot until trials and HSC, sitting down and thinking, okay, here are the keywords. How do these words relate to my text? How do they relate to my quotes? How do they relate to my analysis? And making sure that they were embedded in what I was going to be writing about. So because they can only ask from it. So looking at the syllabus was probably the best thing I could have done.
And then that's the sort of like core of helping you sort of get a sense of what you could expect to see. Yes. What sort of writing were you doing? Lots of practice responses? Like what was happening on that front?
So there obviously wasn't a lot of papers around. We had trial papers. We all got together and got a lot of trial papers. So I would work through, at the end I was working on maybe the week before at least, okay, so maybe the week before I'd do like an essay or a mini essay a day, and then a few days before that I'd look at 2-3 questions and just even do a 5-minute planning session, just brainstorm what I would say, just getting as much exposure as I possibly could without, like, obviously there's not a lot of resources, but getting as much resources as you can, because the thing with the new syllabus is everyone's in the same boat. It's not like someone has the key to the syllabus and everyone's in the same boat. So even if you don't completely understand, chances are most other people don't either. So it was comforting to know that no one else knew what to expect, especially with that paper one, which was a little bit of a curveball.
So then you didn't memorize an essay by the sounds of it. No. You just did loads of practice questions.
I wrote line a bit my quotes and some like base analysis, but I didn't rote learn essays because they said not to rote learn them. So I thought they're not going to say don't rote learn if there's not a reason for it. But I would rote learn quotes and base analysis. And
based on your experience with the exam papers, was that true that rote learning just would have been challenging in terms of an essay itself?
Yes, for some of the questions, yes. For some of them, you probably could have gotten away with it. For example, the common module question, there was a lot of controversy about it because a lot of the people who had rote learn were really upset because it didn't fit love, deception, loneliness, or whatever the human experience was. So that paper was, like, it's always been like my best one. So I was quite confident going into it, but knowing the fact that I hadn't got one essay and I'd practiced so many different questions and a lot of curveball questions from different schools and looked at the syllabus, and yes, they can specify an experience because that's within the syllabus, even though most of us weren't aware of it at the time. So for that one, definitely not craftive writing. I had ideas, and I pulled from probably 3 or 4 creatives I've written in the past to create the one that I do on the day. So that was... So
rather than memorize it, you're writing enough that you've got a bank that you can pull from, and you're remixing and reshaping based on what you have in front of you.
Yes, I think that's really key to it, because if you have one essay going in, then what if it's got nothing to do with it? So... Also, another thing I would do before the exam was just practice. I have what I call my base analysis, what I'll probably write in most exams, but I always do practice the extra couple of sentences linking to the question. That was something I had to work on because my introductions were good, my topic sentences were good, but my paragraphs were not answering it. So that was another thing I did in preparation for the HSC, was just to write my base analysis down, but also write, okay, here's what is the link to the question here.
Building your muscle, if we call it that, to actually respond to the question, which I know you said was your core problem day one, right? Yeah. So it's continuing to do that. So a question then, given that you've successfully navigated the new HSC syllabus, would you have any sort of top tip for students that are facing it in future years? English
isn't as scary as many people make it out to be. A lot of people say it's the hardest subject in the HSC. A lot of people say it's really complicated and scary, but the way I think I succeeded from all of this was just breaking it down to the basics, breaking it down. So English isn't some big scary monster. Once you put the time and the effort in and you can understand, and then it's going to become a whole lot easier. So it'll be different for everyone. These are things that have worked for me. But once you take this advice or do whatever works for you, it won't be as scary. So I think that was a massive part of my loss of confidence, was everyone being, this is the scariest subject, you have to work doubly as hard for English. But really demystifying English and just being like, okay, this is just like any other subject. This is what you've got to do for it. And taking away that massive sort of mystery about the subject really helped with my mindset, which was the biggest struggle through everything.
Wow. And second question then, and so thanks for sharing that, because I think that's so true, like mindset is such a big factor. And maybe it's the same answer, but what would you say then to a student who's doing English and screws up an assessment? what should they do?
I would say if you screw up an assessment, firstly, it's not the end of the world. Secondly, just there's obviously there's probably good areas. There is good areas what you've done, but by sitting down with your feedback, with your teacher, with your tutor, with someone, just reading it through, getting a second eye, having a read through of what you've said and looking and making practical steps to being able to improve, saying, okay, maybe your analysis isn't sophisticated enough, work on that. You can do that by just, the way that I did analysis was I would just continually ask why. So that I would write something and I'd be like, well, why is this important? And then I'd write an answer, then I'd be like, why is this important? I just kept asking why and questions of my own thing, and for me that like really helped. And by sitting down and thinking, okay, what can I do here? Here's my area of improvement, what I need to improve in, and sitting down and just thinking, okay, I can do more practices of this. I can get a tutor. I can do this or that. I would just sit down and write a list of steps that I can do, and small things even, because obviously it's a massive loss of confidence when you don't go as well, especially when you think you're going well. So if you're just doing, just writing down even like a list if you're that kind of person of what should I do now? What are my steps? It really just brings things back to perspective, because obviously there's going to be a lot of noise around you because it's year 12, everyone's stressed, everyone's got their own thing. And even sometimes talking to your friends, like not even your close friends, but talking to people at school, and if study groups are a thing that work for you, or just don't, and I think the biggest thing is don't internalize it. There are so many people out there who want to help you, who want you to go well, and who have the ability to help you. So I think that's what I would say. That's what worked.
Awesome. So there you've heard it, guys. We've just heard some really incredibly practical tips from Sophie on how to bounce back if you don't do so well in English, and then how to, navigate this new HSC syllabus. And I think ultimately Sophie's advice of, if you get the results, sit down, deconstruct the feedback, and write a list, really practical list of what should I do differently, is very good advice. And fortunately, Sophie's just shared the list that she really implemented in her own life to turn things around, which my hope is will help you if you're in the same position. If you have any comments about how to turn things around for English, leave it in the comments below. One of our team will get back to you to support you. If you need more help, we've got an incredible team of teachers, tutors, and mentors that can support you and work with you for HSC English. And finally, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notified, because we bring videos to you every single week. So we will see you next week.